Welcome everyone to organizational management. So, in previous weeks, we've been looking at issues around planning, goal settings, organizations in crisis, organizational resilience. Today, we're looking at something slightly different from what we've been looking at, and this is a concept around strategic innovation. So, we'll be looking at what strategic innovation is, why it matters, and the application of strategic innovation to organizational context. And I just want you to be involved and of course, as usual, if you have questions, um just send me an email. You can post it, and of course I will try as much as possible to get all your questions and queries addressed. So what we're looking at today is this concept of strategic innovations, and I'm just going to slightly take you through the ideas around strategic innovations and why it matters for organizations, especially at this crucial stage where so many challenges within the business environment and organization needs to find a way to look at how they can actually gain competitive advantage within the business environment. So our learning outcome for today is really to look at what innovation is, right? We're trying to make a distinction between innovations and invention. And of course, I will try to explain what strategic innovation is. I will try to get you to appreciate the need for strategic innovation and its component or element within organization context. I will also get you to start to think about how you can actually apply the concept of strategic innovation within an organizational context. So how you can actually take some of the ideas we're going to be going through today, how you can apply them to organizational context. Essentially is about maybe gaining competitive advantage, making competitors irrelevant, and wide range of other issues as well, as you're going to see in the course of today's lectures. So normally, what you will usually find is that innovations and strategies are crucial. So many literatures, academic literatures, have pointed to the value of innovations and strategy for organizations being able to gain competitive advantage and remain relevant within the market in which they operate. So that is the concept in which we start to look at strategic innovation slightly. But strategic innovation is different from all other type of innovations that you probably may have been aware of. And as you will see in the course of the lecture, strategic innovation is slightly, it's been around, but not for a long period of time. It's been around, but it's slightly a relatively new concept. It's trying to gain its academic foot. So I'm just going to unpack some of the key area, right, that are crucial around strategic innovation. Some literature refers to it as innovation strategy, and some refer to it as value innovations, as you see in the course of my discussions with you. So the concept of innovation, so now the concept of innovation within the literatures, there are a wide range of definition of what innovation is, and we've seen some literature pointing out that actually innovation is a new and improved way of doing things, something novel, something useful, a new and improved way of doing things, something novel and useful. Others sees innovations as the conversion of a new idea into revenues and profit, conversion of a new ideas into revenue and profit. So that's something to look at when you are considering innovation, that yeah, it needs to be something that can be converted into revenues and profit. And other literatures point out that actually it's about transforming an idea into a commercially successful product. In other words, the product needs to have a commercial value. The product that you are innovating needs to have a commercial value. And of course, you'll find literature pointing to innovation as the transformation of knowledge into a new product and processes. So you transform knowledge into new products and processes. In other words, you have to move beyond just inventing something. It has to be in a way where you're looking at a stage where it becomes new product and or processes. And others also pointed out actually is the process of translating an idea into a commercially viable customer value proposition. In other words, must have value for customers. So these are many more, a wide range of definitions you will find in the literature, and perhaps even slightly so. Other literatures point to the fact that actually innovation is a multi-stage process by which an organization transforms an idea into a new or improved product or process in order to differentiate itself and compete successfully in the marketplace. So organizations transform an idea into a new product or improved product or processes in order to differentiate itself and compete successfully in the marketplace. So these are there are a wide range of definitions around innovation, how it's been conceptualized within the literature and within the practical context as well. Among practitioners and academics and scholars, there are a wide range of ways innovations has been looked at. So moving forward, so to summarize, so innovation is about successful commercialization of an invention. So invention is different from innovation, right? Invention is different from innovation. Innovation is the successful commercialization of an invention. In other words, it's not sufficient to invent an idea or invent a process. That invention needs to have a commercial value. So innovation is that successful conversion of that invention. So it has to have that commercial value. And of course, one of the other things to note is that innovation is also about that an invention has a socio-economic effect and changes how people live or work or how they buy things. So these are things to think about when you're looking at innovation. And of course, there are other pointers. It's also seen as successful commercialization of an idea into a new product or process or practice. So it could be a new product, it could be you invent a new process, a new ways of doing things, right? But it has commercial values, right? Or a new practice in the sense that can be create value for customers. And of course, you will find other concepts, other topics, summary of these of innovations, some ideas around the fact that innovation is the successful translation of an idea into a new product or process or practice that create economic value or social value. So again, it's ties to value creation, it's ties to commercial value, it's ties to a revenue, it's ties to profit, it's tied to wide range of issues that are the core of organization, especially helping the business to navigate, to survive, to compete successfully within the marketplace. So these are the summary, if you like, around how innovation is being conceptualized within the literature. Now, innovation again is also seen as the effective implementation, if you like, of an idea for a new product or process or practice that create value. Again, if you look at there are a wide range of definitions, the way innovation is being conceptualized, but all of them have that some common elements around value creation, socio-economic value, commercial value, um, revenues and profits for organizations. So again, innovation is not just it has to be successfully translated from an invention stage to something that has that commercial value. So that is something to take away from what I've been trying to say so far. So again, so when you look at the concept of innovation, so one of the things that I found the OECD 2005 actually look at it as the implementation of a new or improve product or process or a new marketing method or a new organizational method in business practice, workplace, organization, or external relations. So innovation has a much more wider applications. But as you will see when we start to look at our main focus for today, which is around strategic innovations, then you start to see how this connects. Now, this definition by the OECD 2005 also includes the generation of new ideas as well as recombination of existing ideas. So, in other words, you may not necessarily be reinventing the wheels, but you recombining existing ideas to form a new product, a new service, or a new processes or a new practice that creates value for customers and has that commercial value. So that's where the recombination of existing ideas kind of come in that concept. So my question to you today is to reflect. So whenever the word innovation is mentioned, which company do you think of? Think about that. So whenever you hear the word innovation, which company come to your mind? Which company do you think of? So think about these particular questions, because innovation is a word that is frequently mentioned, is often mentioned, and sometimes there are some companies that it comes to mind. And I'm just going to what I'm going to show you in the next couple of slides is just an example of some innovative companies. And of course, we're going to then start to look at strategic innovations and why it matters, right? So let's just look at that. So if you think about these on this particular slide, so I'm just trying to capture from 2005 all the way down to 2013. This is just an example. The list is not the list is not exhaustive, is endless. But there are some companies that usually comes to mind when it comes to innovative company or most innovation companies, according to the Boston Consulting Group and Business Weeks. You find companies like Apple is consistent in this particular list. You find companies like Google, 3M, Microsoft, Toyota. Um, you find P&G, Tata, IBM, Amazon, Facebook, and Disney, for example, Walmart, for example, P&G, Dell, these Sony, for example. There are a wide range of companies that um, make the list, but the common ones across from 2005 to 2013, for example, some of these companies that you can see on your screen, like LG, for example, and other companies that you can see on the screen. But I just this is just an example of some innovative companies, and I'm going to as we start to look at strategic innovations, you see why these companies are actually distinct or considered to be innovative. Again, so these the world most innovative companies in 2018, for example, they spend vast majority of their fund, the amount they spend on research and development, which is R&D. Like companies like Amazon, for example, spend a lot of money on research and development, about 22.6 billion 2018 alone. Samsung, Alphabet, which are parent companies of Google, you have Toyota, you have GM, wide range of all these other companies are there, Intel, and other companies like Exxon and the rest of them, Capital Goods. These companies they invest heavily on research and development, so to allow them to be able to continue to innovate. So that really tells you one aspect of some of these companies, and how seriously they take knowledge, how seriously they take investment in knowledge and research and development as well. So, and this for example is a sector specific most innovative fintech. Fintech is financial technology companies in 2019, and the fund that they actually received. So you'll find that across some of these companies like Stripe, Open Door, Plaid, and the rest of them, TradeShift, Credit Karma, Roots, for example, Robinhood, Coinbase, Affirm, Cabbage, and the rest of them. There are a wide range of some of these Betterment. Um, there are a wide range of some of these companies that actually they've attracted a huge sum of investment because of the innovations that a number of them are actually going through. So these are within the financial technology sector known as fintech. So this company really stands out in 2019. And again in 2020, so within the fintech space, for example, based on Forbes fintech 50 by funding and categories, so you find that actually some of the companies that I mentioned in 2019 also made the list. You will find companies like Stripe, for example, valuation has increased. You find Open Door, Affirm, Chime, Credit Karma, Ripple, Coinbase, a number of some of the TransferWise. These are all fintech companies that are doing exceptionally well within the fintech space. So, and some of them, maybe for example, on the African continent, for example, companies like Paystack, Page2, these are other companies that are startup that are also within that space that are doing something really interesting. Again, brand values in billions. You find some of these companies that I've mentioned that are innovative, like Google, Amazon, Microsoft, um, McDonald's, for example. They are investing heavily. Visa, for example, all of them are Samsung. They are investing heavily in terms of trying to capture values. And Facebook and the rest of them, Cisco, Intel. These companies are considered to be innovative because the way they go about their activities is very strategic in nature. That's why we're looking at strategic innovations today. So the most innovative companies of 2020, according to BCG, which is the Boston Consulting Group, you find companies like Apple, Alphabet, Microsoft, Amazon, Samsung. They considered to be the five most innovative companies according to the analysis by BCG. The report is actually out there. You can go and have a look around that and see some of the methodology behind that particular report. And of course, uh, what is interesting is that companies who are strongest at innovations most value advanced analytics, digital design, and technology platform. And of course, companies like JD.com, ABB, FCA, Volvo also joined the top 50 most innovative company for the first time this year. And we find some of the fastest movers like Huawei, for example, jump from 48 to 6th, and Walmart also jump from 42nd to 13. HP, for example, also rose from on that list from 44 in the previous year, and there, for example, also jump in this particular year in question. So interesting stuff. There are a um, number of companies there, but every year, these 8 companies have actually made the list. Alphabet, Amazon, Apple, HP, IBM, Microsoft, Samsung, and Toyota, they've actually made a list every single year. They've made a list of most innovative companies. And what is it that actually set these companies apart? And that's why we'll be looking at strategic innovation today. So when you're looking at strategic innovation, so what is strategic innovation? So strategic innovators, like some of these companies that I have mentioned earlier, so they define what seemed impossible in their individual silos. They have a very shared visions and execution roadmap, and they will try to work to bring to life a new business creation and innovation in a sense as well. So strategic innovation is about reimagining your growth strategy. It's about reimagining your growth strategy. It is the difference between Kodak like that. Some of you are familiar with Kodak. Um, and the immense growth of Apple, for example. Strategic innovation is at the heart of what differentiates these two companies. Now, strategic innovation is not based on the work of a few crazy geniuses within an organization, but on collaborative effort across functions and teams. And these are usually aligned with the missions of an organization. So, in other words, the organization wants to go. And strategic innovation is not creating an episodic reaction, if you like, trying to create an episodic reaction or just one off initiative in isolation, or even you're trying to create what is called more like a creative uh, works effort. Instead, you're trying to create a senior leader led culture of innovation that generates meaningful breakthroughs and creates value across successful rising for your organization and the customers of the organization as well. So let's look at what strategic innovation is. So we've looked at what strategic innovation is not. Now we're looking at what it is. So strategic innovation is defined as strategy of breaking rules, and we're going to look at what does that mean, strategy of breaking rules. Strategic innovation is strategy of breaking rules. But we are going to unpack what break that down, if you like, that phrase, strategy of breaking rules. So by breaking rules of the game, by breaking rules of the game and thinking of new ways to compete. So breaking rules of the game and thinking of new ways to compete, an organization can strategically redefine its business model and catch its biggest competitors off guard. So breaking rules of the game, thinking of new ways to compete. Organization can actually strategically redefine its business models and catch its competitors, biggest competitors off guard. We're going to see some typical examples. Companies like Airbnb, companies like Uber, companies like Amazon. These companies have master uh, strategic innovation in a sense. So the trick with strategic innovation is not simply to play the game better than the competitors, as is usually taught in business school. In most business school, will tell you you need to figure out how to beat your competitors. The idea here is you need to develop and play an altogether different game. So it's not about beating competitors. It's about developing something new altogether to a completely different games or in a completely different context. Now, strategic innovation is fundamentally is about um, different ways of competing in an existing business, and it starts with innovation in one's business model learning towards a new ways of playing the game. So it's about how you look at different ways of competing in an existing market, and you have to start that from your or from with innovations in your business model. In other words, business model here may be in terms of how the business capture values and generate values, and also deliver values and also make money in that process towards the new ways of playing the game. So towards a completely new ways of playing the game. So what I would say is that strategic innovations here is really about the creation of new markets. So you're looking at how do I create new markets and actually lives in customers' values and reshaping the existing market to achieve value improvement for customers. So it's about adding value to customers. So you may want to look at your value propositions. You may want to look at your value captures and value generations, and also value delivery as well for customers, so that at the end of the day it results into fundamental or substantial transformations within the marketplace, and also help the organization to really capture values and generate revenues in the long run. This is what is at the center of this. Now I'm just returning to the strategy or breaking rules. Remember, I've mentioned the words about the strategy of breaking rules. So on rule breaking, for example, You're looking at how Canon, for example, beat the industry leader like Xerox, for example, by breaking the rules in the copy business. You're looking at how Uber, for example, break the rules in the transport business, for example. And you're looking at SpaceX, for example, break the rules in the space business, for example. And think about other companies that comes to your mind that breaks rules within the industries in which they operate. Think about, for example, Spotify, right? Think about Spotify, right? You can start to see how some of these companies are actually breaking rules. They break old ways of doing business within their sectors. Think about even before the advent of Facebook Live or YouTube Live or this live stream where televisions is the only sole means of getting a live message out there, right? So you think about Amazon, for example. You think about Facebook Live, I've just mentioned that, and YouTube Live, for example, on Netflix. These are companies that are actually doing breaking rules within their industries, and there are plenty more. And as strategic innovation is at the heart of this organization. So strategic innovation occurs when a companies identify gaps in the market or within the industry positioning map. When a companies identify gaps in the industry positioning map, decides to then fill those gaps, and then the gaps grows to become the new mass market. So that is the way it kind of happens. So a companies identify gaps in the industry positioning map and decide to fill them, and that gaps grows to become the new mass market. So this is what is at the heart of strategic innovation. So here what the gaps actually means is that gaps here means you're looking at new emerging customers segment or existing customer segments that other competitors have neglected. So it could be that you're looking at a new emerging customer segment or existing customer segments that other rivals or competitors have neglected. And of course, it may also be a case of maybe you're looking at new emerging customers' needs or existing customers' needs not served well by other competitors. So it could be that consumers or customers are not appropriately served well. So that can have a big impact. And of course, it come in there to provide that great services. Again, it may also be that you're looking at new ways of producing or delivering, for example, or distributing existing or new product or service to existing or new customer. For example, companies like Uber, for example, will come in here. Before Uber, there are taxis, there are ways of transportation, there are ways people get to their destinations. But Uber come into that space and offer a completely different new ways of doing the same thing, right? And if you look at maybe, for example, companies like Airbnb, for example, we also fall within these particular categories where they come into this space and offer new ways of delivering hospitality. So strategic innovation is the ability to create and revitalize the business idea and concept of the company by both changing what I call the market of the company and competencies and business systems of that particular company. So it is a combination of strategy and innovation. So how interesting is that? So combination of strategy and innovation. See, that's at the heart of strategic innovation. So it is an organization's process of reinventing, if you like, or redesigning its corporate strategy to drive business growth. Some says is about driving business growth. It's geared towards driving business growth, generate value for the company and its customers, and create competitive advantage. So this type of innovation is crucial for organizations to adapt to the speed of technology change and also maybe disruptions within the market itself. So it is absolutely vital for every organization to consider how they can reinvent or reimagine or redesign their corporate strategies or redesign their business model to be able to capture values in the market and of course drive their business growth and generate value for the customers and its stakeholders as well. and ultimately gain a competitive advantage over a business rival. So why strategic innovations matter? Why does it matter? So why are we looking at strategic innovations in a sense? Now, for me, I think you start to look at what usually happens within the business world is that most managers, most companies try to focus their energy on improving efficiency in order to match or beat their rival. This is a usual business practice. A usual business practice that many managers, many business executives, all they spend their time on is how they can improve their efficiency so that they can actually match or beat their rival. And the evidence from the literature is quite clear. That is not a sustainable way to gain a competitive advantage in the market anymore. Maybe it used to work in the past, but not anymore at all. That you should focus your energies on trying to improve efficiency in order to match or beat your rival. That is an old school ways of doing business. Is an old model that is almost dead by new ways of doing business these days. Now, by trying to improve efficiency, so these companies follow similar strategies that other companies are actually doing. Other companies are essentially doing the same thing. So this can lead to competitive trap because companies we can also copy what your company is trying to do. So because every company is not okay, yeah, if I can increase my efficiency, I can find a way to match or beat my rival, right? But other companies are also thinking in that same direction, and because of that, that can cause that can lead to a competitive trap. So, so what happens is that companies will then end up competing solely or mainly on the basis of incremental improvement in either maybe in cost, in quality, or both. So, and these can be replicated. I've mentioned that it can be replicated. Anybody can replicate that incremental improvement in cost and quality or both. It can be replicated by any company. So after a number of cost cutting exercise or quality drives, even the most experienced manager will find it difficult to further improve corporate performance because it's not a sustainable way to do business. And trying to improve maybe marginal increase in your cost and quality or both, you want to compete based on that. So that obviously is not a sustainable way. Most managers, experienced managers, will find that it's difficult to further improve corporate performance based on trying to do exactly what I've described so far, which is about improving efficiency to beat your rival or match them. So it's not a sustainable way. So this is why strategic innovation comes in. This is why strategic innovation matters. So how do we move beyond this trap that I've described, this competitive trap? So what would then be required is a fundamentally new business ideas and strategies. So business leaders, managers, top executive new require a new ways, a new ideas, a new strategy of doing things within that organization. But the question between the two extremes of strategic innovations um, lies in how organizations redefine their business model and how organizations link the definitions to the strategic literatures or the corporate strategy of the organization. But the academic literatures have come to call strategic innovations as the combination of strategy or innovations and strategy. So I've mentioned that previously as well. So in trying to move beyond what that competitive trap, some have referred to strategic innovations as strategy innovations or value innovation. And by strategic innovations, Harman in 1988 aids actually define strategic innovation as the capacity to reconceive the existing industry model in ways that create new value for customer competitors and actually produce new worth for all stakeholders. So is about that. But there are three central questions to a firm's innovation strategy. Number one, how will a firm innovation create value for potential customers? So how is your innovation going to create value for potential customers? Because if you can create value creation, and you can capture that value, eventually you're going to end up with additional maybe revenue streams, and you're going to drive your business growth, and of course that essentially will lead to improvement in your corporate performance. Again, number two is about how will a firm capture a share of the value its innovation generates. So you think about how you create value for potential customers. You're also now thinking about how do you capture uh, part of the value that have been created that you've generated from your innovation. So how do you actually capture that? So these are questions that are central when you're looking at innovation strategy. And again, you then starting to ask what type of innovations will allow us to create and capture value. What type of innovation is going to allow us to do that? And what resources should each type of innovation receive? So that these are the things to consider when you're looking at this. In sum, a firm's innovation strategy needs to specify how different type of innovation fit the business strategy and the resources that should be allocated to each component of that particular innovations within the organization itself. So that is absolutely crucial. But when you're looking at value innovation, so literature points to the fact that is a concept that makes the competitor irrelevant by offering something fundamentally new or superior buyer value in the existing market, and by enabling a quantum leap in buyers value to create new markets. So the ideas around value innovations, around strategic innovation, is about making competition irrelevant. But how do you get to a stage where you actually make competition irrelevant, where competition does not matter? So how do you get to that stage? What are the things that you need to think about? What are the things that you need to do as an organization, as a business manager, to make sure that you make competition irrelevant within your sector, within your industry? So this is what strategic innovation is trying to get businesses to achieve. So the cross is that in spite of the numerous labels and definitions, there are key commonalities in the literature. There are key elements. And the first is about the fundamental questioning of the mental model, tactics, rules, and establishment of growth, visions, and also creative process to formulating strategy, the redefinition of market space and industry boundaries, and the dramatic achievements of customers and high growth for companies. So these are central within the concept of strategic innovation. So they are very central to it. You're looking at establishment of growth visions and creative process to formulating growth, and the redefinition of market space or industry boundaries, and the dramatic achievements of customers, and also you're looking at issues relating to high growth for companies. So there are three key elements. I think I just need to mention that there are three key elements of strategic innovation that are the core of it. So the first part relates to the fundamental reconceptualization of the business model. So in other words, you need to reconceive your business model. You need to reconceive how you make money. You need to reconceive how you create value, how you capture value, how you deliver the value to customers, and how you actually use that as a basis for gaining competitive advantage in the market. Again, the other component is about the reshaping of existing market. Think about how Uber has transformed the transport sectors, or how Airbnb has transformed the hospitality sector. So so it's about reshaping of existing market to achieve dramatic value improvement for customer and high growth for the companies as well. So three elements on the line above are the key to strategic innovation. So these three key elements are, and I'm going to explain them. I'm going to explain them one after the other. So the first element, so you're looking at fundamental reconceptualization of the business model. So what does this entail? So again, when you start to look at how you actually reconceive your business model, there are some questions that comes to mind. So in other words, you need to ask, what business are we in? This may seem very simple question, but every business leaders needs to be able to answer that question, especially in the era of crisis, in the era of this COVID-19, post-COVID-19. Businesses needs to redefine what business are they in. So you need to be able to ask, what business are we in? In other words, if I ask you now, what business do you think Uber, for example, is into? What business? Is it a transport business? Is it a technology business? What business do you think Uber is in? So these are very fundamental questions that businesses need. When you're trying to reconceive your business model, you need to be able to answer this question. So what business are we in? Who are the customers? Who are our customers? How do we achieve value? How do we achieve value? How do we create value? Right? These are absolutely essential for businesses to be able to answer. Managers needs to answer some of these questions. This will help to reconceive the business model. So asking these questions will make managers to look at their tactics, rules, and analyze the way business is run in their industry. So strategic innovators take guard, engage, establish mental models and tactics, industry rules. So these are really crucial to what strategic innovation and the visual element of that is trying to get businesses to achieve. These are absolutely crucial component of that. So what strategic innovators would do is that they tend to ignore what they are and then focus on what they can be. They focus more on what they can be. Hmm. So the second element here is about reshaping, reshaping of existing markets. Strategic innovators try to look across maybe substitute market and across substitute strategic groups as well. So why conventional strategic logic focus more on fighting for market share in existing market? So strategic innovators are trying to create new market space. So they're trying to creating a new market space. So these are really at the heart of what strategic innovators are trying to do as well. So conventional logic again, we try to focus on outperforming competition, but strategic innovators are seeking radically superior value to make competition irrelevant in the market. So it's about making competition irrelevant within the market space. So this is really crucial to what strategic innovations is. Again, strategic innovators, what they don't do is they don't try to adapt to a standard trend, but they try to actively participate in shaping market and external trend over time. So trying to actively participate in shaping market and an external trend over time within their space. So they define, they set a new agenda, if you like. They set a new agenda within their sector, within the market, and even the trend within the industry. They are active players within that particular sectors, and they over times they help to shape that. Instead of trying to adapt to external trend, they actually part of it and try to redefine that particular trend. The third element is about Dramatic value improvement. So when you're looking at dramatic value improvement, so strategic innovation is not about marginal or incremental improvement, not at all, but it's about achieving quantum leaps in value. So transformational change, transformational value capture, if you like. Again, the strong emphasis on value puts customers at the center of strategic thinking in this particular context here. But strategic conventional ways try to look at maybe how do we retain the existing customer, tends to promote maybe you're looking at ways in which you can actually retain existing customers. That's what conventional thinking is about. But strategic innovations here, you challenging that status quo. You're not just thinking about the fear of losing all the certifying customers alone, but you're actually thinking about how you can create value for these customers. So strategic innovation is more like you also follow non-customers closely to provide unusual insight into trend and changes within that sectors within the market. So these are crucial within that particular industry that you operate in. So for me, I think to summarize would be to look at strategic innovation, which can help identify new products and services before even existing customers start to think of them. So they are trying to create value for customers, create a new product, create new services for customers, even before customers themselves even think of them. So, so in these other parts, I'm just trying to summarize some of these things. I'll provide some example and illustration of how these strategic innovations that we're looking at actually works in practice. So in context, so you're looking at as a strategic innovator, so you want to question everything in your industry. You want to look at your business models. You want to look at your competitors. You want to explore a far wide range of strategic options than other companies may currently be doing or may not be doing. So that would be at the heart of what you do as a strategic innovators. So what that does is that it allows companies to find opportunities or managers to find opportunities where other companies can only see constant constraint within that industry imposed by maybe external condition. So remember previously I mentioned the fact that strategic innovations will help companies to actively create and shape their industry and influence external maybe trend within their industry over time. So here that particular concept will help businesses to find opportunities, whereas other companies may be looking at maybe constraining the market or maybe that is imposed by external condition that is beyond their control. But as a strategic innovators, because you are active players, you are part of those creating those external conditions, you can then tap into the opportunities that those conditions actually brings. So classical example, I've just looked at some drivers of strategic innovations based on the literatures and some, typical example would be Amazon, for example, one of those companies listed in most innovative companies for 2020, and it's been consistent across some in the previous years as well. So one of the things that is part of the driver is these ideas around culture. So within companies that have these that embrace strategic innovation, so culture. So the most important cultural value that leads to strategic innovation is the establishment of this questioning attitude within the company. So, in other words, these examples of questioning attitude is exhibited in companies like Amazon's or Swatch, for example. These companies consistently try to question, encourage employees to challenge the status quo and come up with new perspective, new ways of doing things. So these are the heart of companies that are innovative. Most innovative companies we have that encourage that culture of questioning everything, questioning the status quo to say, can we not do it better? Is there any other ways we can do it better? So they have those. It's been part of their culture. It's part of their DNA. And another aspect is the aspect around processes. So strategic innovations also is achieved through a process of creative exploration. So there must be that creative element of exploring, of trying to figure out new ways, new improved ways. So companies like Amazon, for example, again have that process where creative and growth vision, as well as analytics, for example, is being used to drive more of their evaluation of the market in which they operate on. So these companies are embrace these some of these components, and of course, there you cannot innovate without people. Strategic innovation needs a breadth, wide range of perspective, broader perspective, dialogue about strategy across functional and different aspect of the organization as well. So people outside the companies should be involved as well to get an outside in perspective as well. So some of these companies actually have these components as part of the things that they do, really to innovate, to make sure that they continue to create values within the organization and for customers as well. And resources. So resources is remember when I do mention some most innovative companies, that resources is at the heart of it. So resources is really crucial to strategic innovations in that particular context. So they do not just focus on maybe trying to match internal resources with outside opportunities. They create strong relationship with network of partners that provide maybe complementary capabilities. So they do not just rely on their own internal resources, but they also leverage on external partners and network to gain that complementary capabilities to complement what they've got within the organization. So we're wrapping up here. Again, so strategic innovation is an innovation with the potential to have major transformational effects on the evolution of market and industry, such as the following: emergence of a new industry that can happen as a result of strategic innovation, as we've seen so far. It could be about convergence of two or more existing industry, like we're seeing within the fintech space, for example. Major changes in how a specific need or set of interrelated needs and want of customer is met. um, we look at maybe Uber, and then of course they come into the transport space, they're into delivery, they're into all sort of things. So you're looking at how specific need or set of interrelated needs or want of customer is met in that particular context. Again, you're also looking at it may also result as maybe major changes in how a product is produced or promoted or distributed or priced and or consumed or used. Typical example here would be companies like Spotify, right? How music is being consumed. So major changes in the structural characteristics of an industry, like the market size, market growth rates, industry concentration, entry barriers, and exit barrier. This has happened within the fintech space, for example, where many fintech startups are now able to carry out what most traditional banks usually do within the payment sector. So major changes in the composition of competitors in an industry as a result of new entry of competitors. So it could be that, it could be also changes in the competitive positioning of incumbent competitors. So this could be another issue. So again, very interesting point there. It could also be maybe major changes in the value proposition offered to customer, or maybe as expected by customers as well. So these are one group of other areas that you can be looking at strategic innovations in this particular context. So so innovation that are referred to maybe as the so-called big bang innovations, or big I innovations, or disruptive innovations, or game-changing innovations. Sometimes you find a concept like moonshot innovation, orbit shifting innovation, or radical innovation, or a revolutionary innovation. They are all strategic innovation in that they result in one or more major transformational change. such as we've described above. So these are all strategic innovation. In other words, disruptive innovations or game-changing innovations, or these idea of moonshot innovations or big-shifting innovations are considered to be strategic innovations because they result in one or more transformational change, as I've described in previous slide. So again, sometimes we believe that they actually characterize game-changing innovation as innovation that alter the context of the business, reshape the market, and innovating firm play an entirely new game to which competitors must adapt. So this is what strategic innovation is about. And I've mentioned these earlier, that is seen as innovation that entails more like strategically redefining the business and competing in new ways, as opposed to attempting to trying to be better than competitors in the present ways of competing. So you're not trying to be better than competitors. You are trying to look at new ways to compete. That's what you're trying to do. You're not trying to outperform competitors by looking at how you can improve your efficiency, but you strictly looking at how you can compete in a new way. So this is what strategic innovations is all about. So it's about maybe radically new product that maybe in a way kind of revolutionize the product categories and define new product categories and shift market structures and present new ideas, new technologies. And consumers are also learning. Everybody is excited about it. So these are really truly at the heart of it. So what is the outcome of strategic innovations based on the literature and some companies examples? Again, so in terms of outcomes, so you could look at maybe customer, for example. So strategic innovators um, do not focus on retaining and better satisfy existing customers. So what they do is they follow non customers closely. They think ahead. They identify new offering before even customers start to think about them. So this is value creation for customers at the heart of it. And companies like Amazon again is a classical examples in this particular regard. And again, if you look at maybe competitive positioning of the organization itself, so strategic innovators do not just they don't just focus on trying to outperform competitors, as I've mentioned. They want to make competition irrelevant. They want to offer something completely new and superior value, and therefore make competitors irrelevant. You may want to question, how is that possible? How is that possible that we create something that make competition irrelevant? But this is what strategic innovators do. So, but if you want to know more around this, we want us to take this discussion much more further and deeper. You can email me. We can have a chat about this. I'm just introducing you to some of these ideas and how companies can execute them and how managers can execute them and use it to turn their business around. So, how do you go about developing your strategic innovation? So you need to figure out how you will reimagine your growth strategy. You will need to look at how you will renew your innovation portfolio, and of course, you need to figure out what's the fastest ways to apply your technological assets, maybe your IP, intellectual property position, and unique capabilities to develop new markets, new business that creates sustained competitive advantage. So these are the things that you need to figure out as a manager. So as managers design your strategic innovation, so what needs to happen is that they need to consider both the what and the how of innovation. So in other words, you need to try to pay attention to the what and how of innovation. So example, the what include choices about what solutions, what products, services to develop, what market to play in, to compete in, what brand position to build, what IP strategy to apply, and what business models to actually create. So these are things that companies managers or executive or senior managers within an organization can consider, can think about. The how includes choices about how you organize and deliver values in a completely different ways, how you optimize your processes and process. So finally, So strategic innovations is about how you actually reconceive. So I put it as equals to reconceptualization of business model, reshaping markets, and dramatic leap in value. And again, that is the creation. So you're looking at the creation of value by using relevant knowledge and resources to implement an idea for a new process or practice with the potential to have a major transformational effect on the evolution of markets and industry. So these are really crucial to strategic innovation. So finally, is about how you make your knowledge creation and innovation action a way of life within the organization. You're seeking to create and expand market rather than just reacting to customer demand. So, but you're trying to actively seek to create and expand market and redirecting resources from profitable but maybe declining lines of business to support emerging lines that are potentially more profitable. These are the so I will refer you to some of this literature to look at if you want to maybe possibly read more around this area. For example, I find the Harvard Business Review papers on how GE is disrupting itself really interesting. So you could look at that. You could look at um, the Market 1997 paper on strategic innovation published in MIT Slow Management Review. So you could look at that, but there are other literatures you could look at. So I would encourage you to kind of maybe engage with some of the literatures. Finally, so next week we'll be looking at learning from failure. So learning from failure is absolutely an interesting topic as well within organization. I mean, how do you learn from failures? How do you learn from crisis? And what are the ways to learn? And why do managers don't learn? For example, this will be something that I'll be looking at. But I would just before I leave you, I'll also be encouraging to start at this stage to draft your assignment at this stage. Don't forget, I will also be posting extra resources on my YouTube page where you can just click to subscribe and get updates as I post more resources on the page. So thank you very much, and I'm going to see you again when I do post new materials relating to this area of topics and also maybe case analysis. I know a number of you have been asking me to provide some case commentary in terms of what we've been looking at so far. So I'm going to do that and provide all the commentary of all the cases that we've looked at so far. So thank you very much, and I wish you the very best of the week. So I'll see you when I post new material. Don't forget to subscribe. Thank you, and have a nice day.